I guess, I don't know, what time is it? Should we get started? Check and see. Well, 2:20, 2:33. We could wait a couple more minutes, I guess. I'll just remind you about next month. Oh, somebody talking?
No, go ahead. I'll be quiet.
Okay, well, you could raise your, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell when to let people talk. I'm not muting people, but I just was going to remind people of Station 11, which of course this is backwards, right? But
no, that's right.
Is it coming right? It looks backwards when I'm holding it, but maybe, okay. But anyway, that's next month. And that's the Door County Reads book. And
Nancy, do you know we read that book?
We did.
Yeah,
I know.
in 2016.
We did it a couple of years ago. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think Ann knows that too, because it was her suggestion. I think it was a March and I was gone and she did it, right?
I started reading it and I thought, I've read this before.
Yeah. Yeah, we read it when Nancy was gone and I was leading the discussion.
Okay. Yeah, that was great. So we can refresh our memories, and we should know everything then, right? But then don't forget to either pick these up or go online and find the all of the events that are going to be happening. The first one that I was interested in would be Thursday, January 28th. The Egg Harbor Library is doing a Zoom book discussion on The Glass Hotel, which is also written by Emily St. John. And that is a more recent novel of hers, which I read and I really enjoyed it. And then there's a whole lot of other activities and they're all on Zoom. So I think you can get them through the, check the library website or something. And I think that would work. And then our discussion is February 9th. And there was something else. Oh, the author talk is going to be Thursday, February 11th. And that's, well, it doesn't tell me what time. Door County Reads, watch on Zoom or Facebook. So
yeah, 7 o'clock.
7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. Okay, so that would be good because I'd like to see what that author has to say. So be sure and put some of those dates on your calendar. And today we're talking about, American Dirt, which I wanted to mention a few things about the reception of it. But also there's two other books that I thought if you wanted to read about immigrants, there's Tortilla Curtain. These are older books, but this was about immigrants that were living, like in a little hovel over in the United States and trying to find jobs and become citizens. So that was an interesting book. And this one, House of Sand and Fog, these were more like, well, it wasn't Hispanic, it was a different ethnic group, but they were also immigrants. And all I remember from this one is that it just kept getting worse and worse. They were in the United States, but everything started going wrong. So if you're looking for Tortilla Curtain, I would really look at that one because that was another look at the Hispanic migration. And with American Dirt, I was fascinated when I found, I was looking up stuff online about it, and then I saw some interview with the author, or no, it was with a different publisher, and a whole group of Latinx authors who were protesting this book because she wasn't Hispanic, and how could she ever write this book? She doesn't know what's happening. And they were very unfriendly about the book. And then that turned out that part of it was because they feel that their small ethnic group has not been recognized well by the publishing companies. Just a few, on the pie-shaped chart, there's not too many Hispanic, and that was one of their concerns too. Why did this person get a 7-figure, advance for writing this book when she's not even Hispanic? And other authors from that, national have tried and are unrecognized, and they protested the publisher Macmillan, who is part of Flatiron, or Flatiron's part of Macmillan, and so the publisher agreed that they should look at these other authors too, give them a little bit more leeway. But I thought that was really interesting. And then there was an interview. If you look on YouTube, you can find some of these interviews, and there was another one that she did with a publisher. She was very, they even had to cancel her publicity tour and everything because there were something that there might have been threats to her, but there was so much, discord about it that they canceled her tour, and that seemed pretty sad. But I don't know. I'm glad I read the book. I thought it was an interesting look at the trials that they might go through. And however, she did a lot of research, the author, Jeanine Cummins, and she went down there and worked in some of those migrant, the hostels or the places where they could stay that were safe. And she was along the border with people that came across, and so she did a lot of research, and it took her like 5 years to work on this before she actually got it to the publisher. And I just thought the background of it was kind of interesting to see what she had to go through, or what she is going through with trying to get this book out there. And the publisher, or one of the persons that was representing her, said that she really she apologized for she apologized for the they had a presentation dinner when the book came out for the publisher, and they had on the tables for the centerpieces, they had barbed wire fences as the centerpieces, and some people thought that was really in poor taste, and I would think I would agree with that. But does anybody else have any background information to add on author or the reception of the book?
I didn't realize she wasn't Mexican.
Ah, okay. Yeah. No, she's not. She, well, I don't know if you can see her picture there. There's her picture. So she's not. But
doesn't she isn't she Puerto Rican, part Puerto Rican or something?
Yeah, I think her grandmother was Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And isn't her husband Irish? In the back of the book I had, it gave the author's background, and her husband worked trying to get a green card without having to marry her.
Oh,
and
my.
Then unsuccessfly, he couldn't do it. So they ended up getting married. And so she has had experience with immigration, just
Right.
not directly from the Mexican side of it. So it was interesting to read the author's notes, but yeah, I remember she was, I think it was a grandmother who was from Puerto Rico.
Ah, okay. Well, then that kind of connects her a little bit, but
Right.
yeah, I catch that in the notes. I'm pretty sure I read it, but it just is interesting, the reception that she got from this book. And my thing didn't tell too much about her. Actually, it didn't say too much. She said she's an American author, and she writes about the ordeal of a Mexican woman who had to leave her life and escape. But yeah, not too much about the author. But any other comments about the author that maybe you guys picked up somewhere?
Well, I heard, hello, by the way, my name is Carol Wright. I live in Sturgeon Bay, and I
Okay.
just kind of wanted to stalk you guys today because I read this book several months ago, but I saw you were discussing it, and I had heard some of this controversy. And the one thing I read was that she was being criticized, or the book was, because she was a white woman writing for white people. So although I thought the book was fascinating and it really held my interest, and I felt like I learned a lot about the struggles of people, in these circumstances, then when I read that, I thought, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not as realistic as it needs to be. But anyway, so I was kind of interested too to see if you folks had seen how controversial the book is now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carol. Any other comments on that, on the author?
Does anybody know if it is accurate or not?
Well, I know she did a research, but that's all I can say from my perspective. Any other tidbits?
I had gone to help build a school in Guatemala, and they had one of the people from the village come speak about her experience as a 16-year-old coming up to America. And a lot of things that they're mentioned in the book, she mentioned too, getting stuck somewhere in Mexico in a house with people where it was so crowded you couldn't lay down, or few people could lay down at a time, and all this stuff, and the rape, and the having people up the price at the last minute that they have to pay to the coyote, and then ransom, basically. They contact the person you're supposed to go to and say, we still need this much money. So all of that, is accurate.
That does happen. Yeah. Well, it sounded accurate when she was, when I was reading it, it sounded, and from other places things that I've read. Any other comments about that? Let's see, what else have I got here? Okay. Well, I want to talk about the marketing and the issues there. It was selected for Oprah Winfrey selected it for her book club. And she thought it was an amazing book, literally putting us in the shoes of migrants and making us feel their anguish and desperation to live in freedom. And that's one of the things that the Latinx authors complained about, that how could she be in their shoes when she's not, of that nationality. But, and other people, Susan CIS and Cineros, is that what I said? Anyway, I can't remember what she wrote, but I know I've read something. She's a Mexican-American author, and she called it the great novel of the Americas, the international story of our time. And so there were some very positive comments on it, and then these other people that didn't appreciate. Latinx, I had never heard that. Latinx, Latinx writers. I'd never heard that term before, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And so anyway, so she got it published. And what did everybody think about the story? Any comments on the writing or the storyline?
I loved it. I thought it was great. Good read.
Good. Anybody else?
I thought I thought it was hard to read because of all she had to go through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible to think that she'd be traveling with a little one and all of the misery she went through.
Yeah. Vivian, you had.
I'm still I haven't managed to finish it yet. It's kind of a struggle. And I think because a lot of it just doesn't seem, I have a lot of trouble believing that this guy was such a sweetheart and, so, the poet and such, and yet he's murdering all these people. And I'm like, yeah, right. I just have issues with that, I guess.
Yeah, it seemed a little strange, his relationship with her at the bookstore, and she didn't realize who he was at first. And I don't know, that was a little maybe convoluted. I don't know. Chris, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think for me, a couple of things. I think about her education. And then when she got to the United States, she still ended up working as a maid. And her education, because of her status, was just ignored. And it was such a waste of talent that could be utilized. I have a tremendous respect for those who do make the transition. I was more aware when I was a kid of when the people from Cuba had to leave so quickly. And they were not treated the same. They were treated with much more respect than what this lady has or was. And so that's what I thought. I love the book. I really did. I mean, it makes me sad, terribly sad. But I know that there is some validity in it. I don't know that it is a novel. So as far as complete accuracy, I don't think that's, I think there's a license taken here, but some of the very basic things, and Linda mentioned them in the mules and well, that type of thing. I won't go into anymore, but I recommend the book.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to comment is, I wrote this down, is that from the time she left till the time she was doing maid work was 53 days. I mean, she just got, to the United States, and, she was taking a breath, I think, trying to get settled in. So I suspect in the future, go along with the story, that she could use her education and maybe make a better life. But it was only 53 days from when she left. So, she was just happy to be out of trouble for now. That's how I took it.
Different vintage glass display.
But as an undocumented migrant, she'd be limited in jobs in just a lot of legitimate educated jobs require Social Security and the like.
Or more formal.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I didn't look this up, but if a person comes over or is a undocumented immigrant, do they ever have a chance of becoming a citizen, or are they just going to be sent back if somebody finds them?
Right now, exactly.
Yeah. Christine to mute.
Or she's the one that has to do that, right?
Yeah, she is the one that has to do that.
Yeah, he did this one. So it's his collection.
Anyway, I found it eye-opening, this book. And I have recommended it to several other people, but I didn't know that the author wasn't of Hispanic origin, and that kind of changes my opinion of it, honestly. It's more fiction to me than anything now at this point, because
we can't do newspapers.
You can't really know that unless you went through the experience. You can research all you want, but if you didn't actually go through that experience, it's not real. It's a good book. I enjoyed the story. It was obviously a struggle to get through because it was such a difficult story. I listened to it as a audio book.
Some of them I just put them out on the table.
But you know what, Nancy, I would like, does somebody know the answer to that? Will she ever be able to apply for citizenship? How does that work?
Vivian, do you have an answer?
Mute myself here. She would apply for refugee status.
Okay.
And then
my understanding at that point, it would be up to the courts and the social workers and whatever to research to make sure. And obviously there would be documentation if this had actually happened, it's a novel, that her family had been assassinated. And I'm assuming that would be a pretty good excuse for for getting
Flee.
that refugee status. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But if you did not, they all are fleeing from bad.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the girls that were traveling with her, that who knows?
No,
I don't know.
but they were in trouble too because the
Yes,
drug.
but it wasn't documented where Lydia's was.
Yes.
There were newspaper accounts, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
But you would think too, if this story was real too, she wouldn't want to even file that because there would still be people that would come get her in this country potentially too, not in Mexico.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was a
the
questions that on here. What did you think about her husband writing that story and publishing it in the paper when they knew that they might be in danger because of that?
Well, he did check with her and she read it and she said she thought the reaction of the cartel leader would be okay. And he wouldn't have a problem with it. It wasn't until, sorry, I'm going to put a spoiler in there, until the death of his daughter, which she did not know about, then she understood, I guess, as much as she could, why he reacted in that way. But I liked the book. And I knew fairly early on that the author was not a Latinx author, but I mean, it caught me from the very beginning with the massacre at the quinceanera. And I thought the development of characters was excellent. I was very impressed with her problem solving ability. And it just kept me going. There was just like from one point to the next where she almost was caught at the hotel and then with the buses. And then just as people were following her at the camps, and it kept me going. I have to say, I like this book as well as anything I've read recently.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Jean. That's good to know. I think, I enjoyed it too for many of the same reasons, and I'm glad you have presented them. Any other comments on should her husband have published that article or not?
Well, he had been doing it regularly anyway, hadn't he? That type of thing. So this wasn't so out of the ordinary from what he had done. And in the past, what did they say? They went and stayed in a hotel for a week till things died down, wasn't it? So I don't know if this one was any more extraordinary. Otherwise, she would have said to him, it should be okay.
Right. And it was somewhat favorable, I think, is what when she read it, and since she knew that Xavier, the fella, it seemed to actually put him in kind of a nice, not good, but a better light, so it wasn't totally negative in his respect. But until his daughter, who didn't have any ideas who he was, that was kind of, what did you think about that twist? Would that seem realistic that the daughter would do that?
No. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Teenagers can be pretty emotional and stuff. And suicide is something they can just sort of like, oh, I'll do this, not realizing truly that it's forever.
Yeah.
But I think Nancy's question is, would the daughter not have known what his business was?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure she didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably just said he was a businessman of some sort, and she accepted it.
Yeah.
And she was.
I think she'd have found out at some point.
But not, she hadn't yet.
But she
are very self-absorbed.
Wasn't she in Spain for school? Anne, what were you saying? I missed Anne's comment.
The teenagers are very self-absorbed, so a lot of times they don't pay attention to the outside world. It's all about them. So she may not have taken the time to figure out what her dad was doing.
Right. And if she wasn't home either, so that would
and he probably told her something that seemed plausible.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, what did you think about riding the rails. What was the name of that? What do they call that train? I can't.
La
It
Vista.
was the beast, right?
The
Yeah.
beat. Yeah, yeah. I thought it was really scary when they tried to jump on the train the first time, and the fact that a little 8-year-old boy could do that too. I thought, wow, danger.
That is a true occurrence. That has happened. For myself, I even if I were in my late 20s or 30s as she was, I'm not sure I'd have the nerve. But on the other hand, I have not been put in such extreme positions, life or death situations, like they were. So the word that I think I would use, harrowing.
Yeah. It's very frightening. Yeah.
Well, I think the author kept going back to it because you kept wondering, why is she doing these things? Or, oh my goodness, it just over the top, scary things. But she was trying to protect her son. And that was the one thing she was going to do, because 15 other members of her family were gone, and she was just desperate. So I think that's why she was doing things that even she didn't think she could do, but she felt compelled to do them.
Exactly. It's sort of like the grandmother who picks up the VW to save her grandson.
Yeah, you get that strength somewhere and you just keep going. Yeah, but boy, pretty scary stuff though. But
sure was.
Yeah, who else? What else can we find up here to talk about? Oh, what did you think about the human ATM machine? When the girls when they were at one of those camps, and she learned a term that meant it was dangerous for the women and female migrants in particular because of this. They were just out there, I guess. I was worried about the girls all the time. Yeah.
You know,
worry about it all. Okay.
What I thought was an interesting character was this Lorenzo, who, seemed to, say he was not with the Los
cartel,
John Jardineros or whatever.
Yeah.
And whereas I think he was the whole time, they kept making it look like he was just trying to escape. And it was, anyway, he was an interesting character. And of course he did turn out to be bad. Yeah, there was just, there was so much tension all the time.
Yeah, it was well.
Yeah, who to trust?
Because of that. Yeah. Chris, did you have something you were going to say? I thought I saw. No.
I forgot. I did, and I forgot. That's okay.
Your light came on. I'm sorry. Yeah. And here's Beth. Maybe you want to give us a little blurb about what your take of the book was.
Oh, well, I don't know what everyone else said, but I liked it. I just wanted to know what was going to happen next. And I felt like I learned, what it would be like to be a migrant and come here. And she made the point that everyone was leaving a bad situation and trying to do better. And they go through a lot of terrible things. So I thought it was a good story.
Well, good. Thank you.
Did everyone else like it?
It was some do, some. It was hard. It was a hard read. Is what I think we all decided. But I think it was well worth reading, and that you found a lot of interesting things. There was another question in here when we talked about the asylum, but there was why did she call the book American Dirt? What do you think the title came? Any thoughts on that?
Could be literally getting onto American soil, that she'd be safe once she was in America.
Yeah, they were getting to El Norte, American dirt.
Mhm.
I have a little twist on that. We as people from the United States get really, well, I won't use the word. We think that the word America belongs to us. And that's not obviously correct. And so another take on it is, because I agree with the other take, but when she came to the United States, she was still an American, but she was considered dirt.
Yes,
And so that's just a possibility.
that's kind of the way I saw it too, that even once they got here, they were in America, but they weren't, they were not part of us. It says here, when Luca finally crosses over to the United States, he's disappointed because the road was nothing like the road he imagined in US. He thought every road there would be broad as a boulevard, paved to perfection and lined with fluorescent storefronts. But the road was like the crappiest Mexican road he'd ever seen. Dirt, 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 and more dirt. That was from chapter 31. And then he said they were talking about the American dirt. But then another question was, the term American appears only once in the novel. And why do you think the author made that choice? And did you notice that?
Yes.
She did. Oh, Elaine.
Well, it's because she pointed it out, and I'm sure you've heard this before too, is that we all consider ourselves Americans, but there's more Americas than just ours. And she in that one area wrote that the people there call us United Statesians or something, but I have heard this before, so.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anybody else have a comment on that?
Well, Mexicans are Americans too.
This is true. This is true. Because they're from America. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we ever think about that? We seem to not include that. Huh.
I have an aside. I have always been one to appreciate people who are bilingual. So when someone comes to a country and they do not speak the language of the country and they have to learn it, it is amazing to me. I have great admiration for them. Now, she and her son both were indeed fluent in English, so they were a step up. But I think about those people who do come who do not have second language, and my little bit of traveling that I've done, that I have attempted to speak in other tongue, in other languages. I am just humbled by what they do. So I thought I'd add that.
Well, and a lot of times when they come to our country, it's a whole different culture and everything. They're not familiar with any area. And, you really have to see it's difficult for them and hand it to them. And a lot of times they are looked down on and down at.
Or down on, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's it's a whole different, I don't think we can even imagine how those people feel when they come here and they want to be in North America because they think it'll be better here, but it's so hard for them. And to actually become citizens or to get jobs, and I don't know how they do it. It's amazing. But I was looking at a note here that because Soledad and Rebecca, her sister, the girl that came from, were they from Honduras or someplace in Central America? And it said,
Yes,
that they could apply for asylum because their life was in danger. But and they thought that they could apply for asylum because more of the people were leaving from down there because of the unrest and everything. And I'm not sure, there again, I have no idea what the actual rules are that they would have been able to do that, but that might be another thought. Here's an odd question. Toward the end of the novel, Soledad sticks her hand through the fence before remember they stopped in that one little town along the border with the fence, and she sticks her fingers in so they could be in North America, and then she spits through the fence only to leave a piece of her there on American dirt. That was chapter 28. And why would she do that? I didn't understand what that significance was. Any thoughts on that?
My thought was if she can't be there herself, she was going to leave at least part of herself there. Let some of herself get through.
Yeah. And they talked about the American flag there too. One of the boys, I think it was the younger one, Beto, or anyway, it might have been Lorenzo, but they saw the big American flag flying just across the border. And it was beautiful and big and clean and not tattered. And then there was the Mexican flag that was all tattered and torn up. And they sort of thought that as an example of, between America and Mexico. And I'm not exactly sure what she was trying to say about that.
I can speak to that. There's a tremendous difference between what our government pays for. In Mexico, they don't have anything like taxes. If you, in a town, if you want to have water, you have it brought in. If you want to take care of your wastes, you have that trucked out. If you want your roads fixed, you pay for that. They, as a matter of fact, there was a joke. We were staying for many years. We stayed in a small town every year, and the joke was I paid $35 in taxes last year, and this was an American who lived in that small town. But again, remembering all that stuff that they don't get. That's a given in the government.
So they wouldn't get new flags very often then either.
You're right.
Nobody's paying for the new flags. Yeah. Okay. Here, another question was, why do you think there are birds on the cover of the book? That could be why did they choose that picture for the cover.
I took it like bluebirds of happiness and also freedom, escape.
They could be. I think they're hopeful. I think the birds are hopeful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Who picks these covers anyway? Who does these covers?
It bothered me in the book that the police were so corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like everybody knew they were corrupt. And so what could she do? She couldn't call the police. What would, I often thought about what would I do if I were in her shoes,
And she didn't know who was good and who was corrupt.
Right. She couldn't trust anyone because you just didn't know who was part of it and who wasn't.
Right.
And that's a truism as well. When we stayed all those years, we stayed with this lady whose name is Marcy. She's a Californian, and she said, "You probably won't have any trouble with the police, but if you do, don't talk to them. Just have them call me." And there are so many stories of the police stopping, especially Americans in their rented cars, and saying, "You were speeding." And they will say, "You can either pay me this much money, or I'll take your passport, and then you can deal with the central government." And of course, everyone is going to pay the pesos to oh, and they would prefer having American dollars too, by the way, when they have to pay. So, I mean, that's really the truth. On the other hand, I've been lost a couple of times, I was at a couple of places, and the policemen were just as kind as can be. So, but there is definitely payoffs. I mean, it's a regular thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was really hard. Yeah, right. She couldn't call the police, and I don't know who would you go to for help. You couldn't tell anybody. And then when even the border patrol people that got them off the train that one time and took them, I don't know, were they the legitimate border patrol people, or no, they were still in Mexico then. So what group was that took them off the train?
I don't think it was legitimate. It was people where everyone had to pay ransom to get be left go.
Yeah. What a frightening.
There are groups because again, they don't have a lot of police protection. So, for example, at the beginning of COVID, a bunch of people in this town blocked off the town, and so they were acting as police, and that's a very common thing to do in Mexico. And so that's I forget the word for it, but there is a word in Spanish for it, and I've forgotten. So that's a common place there too.
Vigilantes, kind of a lawless stuff. Well, okay, who was your favorite character? Did you have a favorite character in this adventure?
I like Beto.
Oh, okay.
Well, why did you like him, Linda?
He was just so resilient, just so I will make this work, and I just liked him.
Yeah, he was the one from the garbage dump, wasn't he? Out from the dump, and yeah, he was an interesting character. I thought all of her characters had, there was a little different twist to each one of them that made them very interesting, and we just wanted to find out what was happening to them. But it didn't go well for him. I was sad about that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well, you knew when they first introduced Beto and he was trying to use the inhaler that was empty, that was writing on the wall, that was foreshadowing. But Lydia would not have made it to America had it not been for Beto and his kindness, since he paid the shortfall to the coyote. So Beto was up there as one of my favorite characters too.
Yeah, he was a good one. Anybody else? Elaine, I thought you.
I liked Luca. I just was amazed at how he knew his geography, and he was helpful.
Okay.
And I think he amazed a lot of people. So he was, and resilient because of the trauma and the things that he went through. And of course, that's what Lydia was worried about. If he gets through this, will he come out, just too jaded? Anyway, I just thought he was a good little kid.
Anybody else?
Well, they weren't really characters, but I like the people that had food or sandwiches or something for the people as they traveled. I just thought that was a really, really nice thing to do. And I don't know if that happens or not.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, a lot of, they said they came out to the trains and they just had brought baskets, and, they knew the migrants were there, and that was amazing too. And then sometimes they said the officials on the train or the engineers and people, they knew the migrants were there too, and they would slow down so they could get on, and they didn't really try and chase them off. I thought that.
Yeah, some places they did and some places they didn't. But, I was surprised that the cartels just left all these safe places alone. The migrants knew where to go. You know, people in the town told them they looked for the migrant place or the church, you know, like it was just well known that they could get food and help there and stay there.
Do you suppose they were paid off? The cartels were paid off to leave these safe places alone, or how? Yeah, why was that? Does anybody know? No thought. But I would imagine, I don't know, were they protected or something? Well,
maybe some of them were churches or church related. Maybe there was kind of a little buffer there between the church and the community or the cartel. I don't know. Maybe they had the fear of God that they could put
right. Because a lot of them were still, well, it appeared that some of them were still religious, and maybe you're right, the fear of God was there for some reason. Yeah. But well, what about Lorenzo? Elaine mentioned him before, and he was kind of an interesting character, but towards the end, was he still working for his cartel group or not?
Yeah.
He just had some recent texts in his phone.
Yeah, she saw it on the phone.
Yeah, he was.
But I thought he wasn't answering back to the cartel, or they were texting him. I wasn't quite sure if he was responding to them or not.
Well, he kept telling them
well,
that he had left the cartel, and she believed him. I mean, that, it looked like in all indications that he had. But then she finds out that, he had either been reporting or decided to report them where they were.
I was wondering if he is kind of wavering back and forth, whether
That's
or
what I
not
thought too.
trying to leave, and then he, the pressures would come and he'd join again.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then when he realized who Lydia was and that Xavier was looking for her, that might have been, that was why he was in the middle of it, because there was a reward probably out for her or something. But
yeah. Well, he caught on to that right away, though.
Yeah.
It seemed like he could have turned her in much earlier if he really wanted to.
Right.
Right, because he caught on to her right away when they got on the train.
Yeah. But what a scary thing, that tattoo that he had behind his ear with the sickle. And I think they said that each drop of blood meant somebody he had murdered.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yikes. Watch out for the sickles. Yeah. Well, it has been opted for movie rights. So at some point, we don't know when, but that might be an interesting movie, But like the movie that's coming out now, what was it? News of the World, that's coming out in the movie. I think that's going to be a good one too. And I do believe we've read that book.
Yes, we did.
They'll probably have what is her name? Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I think that would be interesting though. But okay, well, do you guys have any other comments or questions?
Well, we didn't talk anything about El Chaco, the jackal, the coyote.
Oh, the coyote.
That was a pretty interesting 2.5 days, I thought. My goodness, the people to survive this, and they're walking in the total darkness, and that was a pretty scary part too. But how they gave a little background on him and what made him do what he did, and it's just pretty amazing stuff. You want to think that he was a good person, sort of. But why it costs so much for them to cross the border, because he knows who he's paying off and how everything is just arranged. Even the people in the end in those RVs, it's like, oh my gosh. And then like what Wally and I talked about, how the border guards take off for an hour or something, where then the RV knows when to drive through. Everybody's paid off along the way. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So that's why he needed a lot of money to go, but.
Well, that's exactly, and how he wasn't gonna take anything less.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I would bet that's common in a lot of foreign countries though, not just Mexico. I mean,
Other
sure
places.
that when we went to
Sure.
Thailand, we had to bring money for suggested donations.
Oh,
Sure.
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, the other,
I wondered about two things, you know, that Jackal said to, oh, I can't think of her name, but when she finally talked to him towards the end on the phone, and he said that he would have never hurt her. And yet, I mean, for those men to just, you know, shoot her family, how could they be sure that they wouldn't be shooting her and the son, you know, of course.
You mean
Oh.
Xavier? Is
Xavier,
that
yeah.
his name?
You
Okay.
know, I know maybe they waited until they went into the house or something, but you know, that didn't make sense to me, that he said he was sure she wouldn't get hurt. And then the other thing was there's the controversy about leaving the water, you know, in the desert.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it saved their lives. And yet some people think that that's enabling them. You know, some people are against that, leaving water in the desert.
Right. And it's interesting that it would still be there. I mean, you would think that the Border Patrol people would catch it or something, but if they hadn't had that water, they couldn't have made it through because it was so hot. And I don't know. I don't think I could do that walk. Not now. Maybe when we were younger, maybe.
I think there's a lot of similarities in this book to other books I've read about the Underground Railroad and
Yeah.
the flights those people had to go through to get from the south to the north.
Yeah. Yeah. And they also had safe houses that would take care of them, and just like on here. Yeah. There are parallels there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm sorry that they lost that one young boy, and I kept thinking, well, they made a reference at some point as to one of the drugstores had the inhalers with the albuterol in it that they could have picked it up, but then they would have needed a prescription. So I don't know how that, but I thought, why didn't somebody go get him an inhaler? Or somebody could have. You'd think somebody would have done that.
Well, weren't they in the desert at that point?
Yeah, but even at the beginning, his inhaler was empty. They knew that, and they had stopped at some of those other safe houses. You would think, I would have hoped that somebody could have helped him out, but that wasn't the story.
Yeah, that's a good point, because in Mexico you don't need prescriptions for stuff. You can just go in and buy.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Excuse me. I have one other thing that I thought was really good. It was when I forgot his name, the fellow who took them across the desert.
El Chaco.
The coyote. Yeah.
Actually finally was willing to take her son. I thought that was interesting, because he'd never done it before. He'd never taken a kid. He'd never allowed it.
Then he had a couple kids, actually, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that made it more difficult. And you know, and then the other one that got hurt in that flash flood in that gully when they were crossing, I thought, oh my gosh, that they were able to. Yeah, I didn't think about that. They were walking down the gully, and there had been all this rain. Yep. But how frightening that would have been. Well, I guess we should all be thankful that we don't have to cross the desert and sneak into the country. We should be grateful for sometimes we forget. Yeah. Any other comments or suggestions or talking points you want to touch on before we say goodbye?
Thanks, Nancy, for
Thank you.
all you did.
Well, I like the book. I think it was worth reading. I did talk to some people that said, oh, they just couldn't read it at all. They were, it was just it wasn't good for them to read. So I thought, yeah, it was hard to read, but it wasn't gory hard. It was just, things that might be happening. And I thought it was good that we reread it. And I'm glad the author wrote it because, and persisted. I haven't read any of her other things. I have a few other books, but has anybody read anything else by her? No, maybe we should change. Yeah. Well, don't forget, next month, Station 11, right? We'll be on track for that, right? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll check
Thank
with
you.
you.
Good to see
Thank you.
everyone.
Good
Bye.
seeing everyone.
Chris,
Bye, Linda. Talk to you
Chris,
later.
Bye, Chris.
Check
Chris,
with you later.
Yes,
where do you live in La Crosse, right below the bluff?
on the south side of La Crosse.
Oh, because my husband's brother lives there. We spent quite a bit of time there. He's on 23rd, I think.
Oh, that's where we used to live.
Oh,
Now we're farther south. That's all I can really tell you, especially since if you knew La Crosse a little bit better. But it is farther south.
Very cool.
So
Yeah.
it's a cool place. So
yeah, it really is. He's got a really neat house. Well, the house is little, but it's a neat place.
well, that's the area. All those houses there were built about the same time.
Mhm.
And I remember living in a little house not too far from there. We were on 24th Street.
Oh,
But
yeah. He's on 23rd, not far from Maine. I think he's at like 116 or, so.
that's a great neighborhood. That's
Yeah.
exactly where we live too.
Mm,
Great
yeah,
for kids.
I feel like I'm looking at winter and summer, winter
are.
and summer.
Yeah.
Beth, you'll get to choose. Which would you like?
The summer.
I
I'm in
think-
Florida.
After I said, oh yeah, you don't want to be up here.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Barb.
Bye-bye.